So, hello everybody. Good morning, afternoon, and evening. I'm Anusha Khan from the IFC. I work in the Financial Institutions Group in the areas of SME banking and banking women business. Welcome to this session on the business case for non-financial services. I'm very pleased to be here today to be able to discuss with two leading bankers the business case for NFS for SMEs and women SMEs. And before I introduce our great panel, I would really like to take a moment to talk about the exciting new report that IFC, in collaboration with FMO, has just launched on this very topic. I know that a number of you may have heard Jessica Schnabel speak about it in the fireside chat, but I do want to take a few moments just to go over the main findings of IB. So the report is based on the survey of 34 banks globally, analysis of 5 SME banking models, and features in-depth case studies of leading commercial banks, KCB and NatWest. We're very pleased with the key findings, one of which is that a well-integrated NFS program for women SMEs yield a positive return on investment or ROI within 1 to 2 years. This is a really powerful finding as it helps to demonstrate the business case for a well-integrated NFS offer. We also found that there are 4 key drivers of ROI, as Jessica mentioned. Their interest income, its wallet share, which is defined by cross-sell, deposit volume, and fee income. The third driver is really around loyalty, and the fourth and very important driver is around reduced risk. The report also delves in the key performance indicators that banks use to track and measure ROI, and it discusses best practices in the design and execution of women SME-focused non-financial services programs for banks. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I've been told that I have very strict timelines to maintain, so there you go. So in the next 20 minutes, we're going to dig into this very topic of the drivers for ROI, how best to measure them, and key challenges that need to be addressed by the 2 leading banks that we have today here in our panel and that are also featured in this report. Let me now introduce you to our panelists. Our first panelist is Yvonne Greaves, Director of Women in Business, NatWest Group. As you may know, NatWest is a leader in supporting women SMEs across the UK, offering a range of NFS to support businesses. Our next panelist is Naomi Nadell, Head SME Banking and Agribusiness, KCB Group Limited. KCB is a leading bank in supporting women SMEs in Kenya and across many countries in East Africa. They also offer an integrated NFS program to support their SME clients. Yvonne, Naomi, welcome to you both, and many thanks for your time and your contribution to this report that we've just launched together in collaboration with FMO and CCS. So on to the first question. I wanted to start with asking you both to tell us briefly about your NFS programs. Yvonne, if I may ask you to kick it off. So over to you, and appreciate if you could unmute yourself if you haven't done so already. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining this session. So Julie Baker has already given quite a bit of an overview on what we actually do in the non-financial services product, but however, I want to just give a bit of a larger overview and a bit more in depth. So we look at the female as the whole entrepreneurial journey from very thinking of starting up and starting up a business all the way through to the exit stage. And it's important as a bank with hundreds of thousands of female customers that we are there at each stage across that journey. So we look at everything from early stage, from that education across many stages of the business, from micro businesses all the way up to large corporate businesses. And we do that through a number of programs. Julie mentioned our Entrepreneur Accelerator Hubs, of which we have 12 across the UK, with various initiatives like Back Our Business around trying to offer financial advice for pre-seed funding for businesses. From information, so we have a specialist section in our NatWest Business Hub dedicated to female entrepreneurs. We can never have enough role models, and we can never have enough case studies of females. So we see that as very much an integral part of our offering. It's around that education, that information, and having that you can't be what you can't see. So we do a lot around that. We work with external partners as well around an entrepreneur hub, a digital hub that we work with partners. We see that collaborative partnership model is a key part of our offering. We also do a lot around networking and a lot around the marketing aspects as well. So with the networking last year, we hosted in the UK over 350 events, reaching over 22,000 females. Those events were everything from seminars to roundtables to large award programmes. And we see that as a key touch point. Now we've had to completely shift from March this year to a completely virtual offering, but we're actually seeing a large demand. And what we're also seeing from our female customers is that they really want that connectivity with other people in their local areas. Partnerships, training, data, there's lots of different areas. And I think this is the key. You've got to have a really diverse, integrated approach when you're looking at this. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone from Nairobi. Yes, just to follow through what Yvonne has said, we do have at KCB Bank an NFS program for MSMEs, both male and female. And what we include in the NFS program is really a lot of information and education. And this came up as a result of a survey we did 4 years ago. And the customers we interviewed were very keen on having additional information on how they can run their businesses successfully. And so we have, like I said, a large pillar on education, which we have two components of training and workshopping. And the training is both short-term and long-term. Blended learning. We also have coaching and mentoring, especially for the women SMEs. We also have for the face-to-face trainings. In the last year, we've had quite a number of face-to-face, and this year we've also had sessions on virtual sessions on through webinars. So that is one of the key components of our NFS. We also have networking and market, and this we do by exposing our customers to international and regional trips to other countries where they can pick out best practice from other businesses. We organize B2B meetings, and they're able to share their experiences and also learn from each other. I think those are the two key components of our NFS at KCB Bank.
So no, great, Naomi, that and Yvonne, very interesting programs that you both have. So Naomi, while I have you, maybe I can direct my second question to you. So of the 34 banks that we surveyed for this study, 94% said that they track at least one NFS-related KPI, and 68% said they track 4 or more KPIs. This is really a huge improvement from what we found in our previous study in 2012, and where both banks actually didn't try to quantify the impact of NFS on profitability at all. So the question is, why is it important for your bank to measure the impact of NFS?
I think measurement is very key in the sense that NFS services are really an expensive venture. And so to justify the business case why you should have an NFS within the model in the bank, you need to evidence that there are results from what you're doing. And noting that NFS services are really not key, they're not core banking services. I think for traditional bankers, you really have to evidence why you need to do it, because really what matters is the bottom line. So I think it is important that as part of justification of the business case, you need to track and evidence that there are results arising from the NFS program. A lot of times it's qualitative because you're touching on lives and it may not really come directly into the P&L or the balance sheet, but it is important to track and evidence that you're actually gaining results and benefits from the program.
No, that really resonates. Thank you, Naomi. Yvonne, would you share your perspective on why it's important to measure NFS?
Absolutely, and pretty much the same as Naomi said. I think if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. And when you have those measurements and you actually show the data points to show that there is value in this market and that it's profitable and that and then that's when you start to see more traction. We've noticed since we started tracking our data around various metrics since 2016, from NPS to events to lending to switchers, etc. We've noticed that year on year, we've seen more and more support from senior leaders within the organisation. And we've also been able to expand out across the whole bank rather than it sitting within one division of the bank, sitting within generally the SME part of the bank. It's really moved out to the whole, all divisions of the bank want to be involved in this women's market, and they want to be involved, and they're seeing the impact, and being able to measure that was the real game changer when it came to our programme. I couldn't stress strongly enough to actually get the data from day one, track the data from day one. And the problem with data is the more you have, the more you want, the more it brings up questions, the more you think, why is that? Why have women got different products to men? Why, what are the differences and what are the drivers? And it can actually educate your learning and be able you to respond better to your customers.
Yvonne, that actually really resonates, both of you. So my next question is really around this whole area of return on investment. As we mentioned before, the study found that banks that integrate non-financial services in their women SME and SME propositions see a return on investment within 1 to 2 years of launching the program. So Yvonne, let me start with you. What has your experience been, and what have you found to be the biggest contributor to the ROI?
I think at the start, we've been had a women's market since 2003. We relaunched it in 2012 when we started to train our frontline staff to understand the challenges that our female entrepreneurs have. But I would say that 2016, when we started to track set of data points, that's when we could really prove the ROI. Now, it's impossible to say that a woman coming to an event or having an intervention with yourself, with the bank in, for example, February, it's impossible to say that when they decide to rebank in November, that it's because of that intervention. But when you look at it at an aggregate position across a number of years and across a number of different data points that you're tracking, you can start to see that there are correlations that you can make that start to prove the ROI of the programme. And also it makes it easier to go and ask for money for your programme, when you can actually say we have seen year-on-year growth and we are outperforming male business owners in certain of those data metrics. So the ROI has been fairly straightforward to prove since we started to track the data in such depth as we do.
No, that's wonderful. And I know that Naomi, that you for KCB also have a very consistent approach to measuring the return on investment. Would you be able to share some thoughts on that as well?
Okay. So for us, we tried to make it as simple as possible. And based on the business development skills that the customers were receiving, one of them was around financial management. And key for us was, are they able to package their financials in such a way that they will be able to access facilities? And so a key measure for us is the growth in the loan portfolio, and additionally also the repayments. So this comes along with measuring the non-performing loan book. So those two are key measures for us. We also, based on the feedback that we get from the customers after the trainings and the workshops, we track on loyalty and advocacy through the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. So those are some of our key drivers that we and metrics that we check on impact of the NFS. There's also the bit around growth in customer accounts, because once you get the loyalty of the customer, then you're bound to cross-sell more and to get more value from them in terms of additional accounts and also deposits into those accounts. So accounts and deposits, especially savings deposit and accounts, is also a key metric.
So, no, great to hear that you go across the board in terms of income or interest. You're looking at deposit values, you're looking at quality of the portfolio, and you're kind of linking that to your NFS participants. So that's really great to hear. So Naomi, I think while I still have you, I just wanted to raise this point, which I'm really curious about. There must have been challenges as you set this up. It must not have been an easy task. What are some of your key challenges that you needed to address when it came to tracking data and getting to the point where you were comfortable that you actually had an ROI that linked to an NFS program?
I think the largest, or rather the biggest challenge we faced was around data, because we did not have disaggregated data as part of what we as a bank report. So we had to come up with ways of disaggregating that data and being able to identify who were the male owned businesses and the female owned businesses. So data was a big challenge. Like I said earlier, NFS is expensive. So justification for a budget and giving the assurance that the money would come back into the business was also a key challenge, because like I said, it doesn't reflect immediately. So it takes time to evidence the impact of the NFS. So being able to convince people that yes, it's coming, and it's not coming today or tomorrow, it will come maybe a year, 2 years later, was a real challenge for us. So that urgency to see returns was a key issue. There's also the bit about getting everyone to rally along in the NFS. Like I said, it's not traditional banking. Traditional banking is about offering financial services. So getting everyone to be aligned that this is an important aspect in giving it to our customers to get value was also a journey. It has been a journey, and so I can say comfortably that we have seen the steps of the journey coming to life, and it's not been an easy task.
No, that I'm sure resonates with a lot of participants who've dialed in today. So Yvonne, any thoughts around the challenges and how you went around addressing them?
So it's interesting, Naomi, it's almost, we're still very similar to yourself as well, and probably like many other banks. And one of the challenges that we faced is that we have many systems that maybe don't necessarily talk to each other all the time. And when you start looking at different divisions of the bank, trying to track that data across different divisions that use different systems can be challenging. And also when we start moving into the larger part of over 2 million turnover, over $2.5 million turnover businesses, then we're starting to look at a slightly different proposition. And it's harder to track that data sometimes because we're looking more at women CEOs, women managing directors, women business leaders. The vast majority of businesses, female-only businesses in the UK, are under 2 million turnover. And we have a lot of data around that. But when we start looking at the wider bank, it can be a little bit trickier to find that data because just because of historic systems, it can be harder to work out what percentage shareholding a female owns within the business and if she's the controller. But we've overcome a lot of it. We still have challenges around professors and doctors sometimes, like maybe not having that gender flag, but we are fairly confident that we have got a strong handle on the female book that we have now. But I think there's always challenges that come up, that it's just a case of tenacity and keeping going back to the data and analytics team and saying, but why? I need more and I need more. I think I annoy them at times, but I keep getting more questions because of the data, but it really does prove the business case. And if you don't know what your book looks like, then how can you support it? How can you go out and support your females if you don't know where they are and what kind of products they've got, what size of business they've got? And that's what we're there to try and do, is to support across those various parts of the entrepreneurial journey.
No, that's amazing to hear that it's still a continuous journey for you as well. You know, I guess it never ends. But it's important to take that first step and keep at it. I guess that's what I'm hearing from you and Naomi. So so go ahead.
I was just going to say, choose a couple of key KPIs that you want to track. For us, we track lending, switchers into the bank, new accounts into the bank, and NPS, Net Promoter Score. Those are the key ones that we track, and those are the ones that I can quickly update and send to exec to talk about the numbers. We track an awful lot of other numbers, but it's better to start with a couple that you think are your key business case ones and then move from there.
Oh, that's very helpful, I'm sure, to the audience. So we have a last kind of question for the panelists coming up, but before I do that, I do want to urge people to put in their questions on Slido. We may have time for one question to be responded to by the panelists, and the rest we can come back to later on in written form if you do have questions. So my last question to you, Yvonne, and I'll go to Naomi for that, is, you know, there are many SME bankers, we think, that's out there looking to implement an NFS program successfully. So what are the success drivers, lessons that you can share with them about sustaining a positive ROI on the NFS program?
Maybe I could go first. So
sure.
The institutional alignment is key. You cannot work in a silo. You need to involve different stakeholders within the business, and not necessarily the business teams. You also need to bring in the support functions, the credit team. You need to bring in the communications team. You need to bring in definitely the frontline staff. So that alignment is very, very key. And also getting to work with champions who believe in what you're doing also helps. Measuring and tracking, like we've just talked about, is also very key. Like I said, it's a slow kind of return, and so you need to keep shouting. You need to keep sharing milestones, just to keep everyone in touch with what you're doing and the impact that you're creating. And lastly, NFS is expensive. So if you're able to work with partners to support you in the cost elements, in subsidizing the programs, it will be very helpful to make your ROI come in faster.
No, that's great to hear. Yvonne, any last thoughts? 30 seconds or so, and I do want to give about a minute to answer to one of the Slido questions that's coming in.
I think just building on the last part around the partnerships and the collaboration, I think working with other organisations out there in the ecosystem is a real key part, and it's one of the areas that we've been able to grow as well, because listening to your customers, listening to what they need, and then building around that in collaboration. There's no point doing it all by yourself. Collaborate with fantastic organisations in the wider community.
No, that's a great point as well. Don't take everything on yourself. Great. Now, this has been really, really interesting for me. We have a few questions coming in, and I think we have time for one. And I'm going to ask you one to take this first, and then maybe Naomi. So the question is, how would you approach a financial institution who has not offered NFS to take the first steps to get started with the program?
Probably the first step is, what are you trying to achieve? What do you want to achieve? What area do you want to address? Do you want to work with females starting out in business, or do you want to work with females in that growth stage? What is the ask? What's the end goal, and almost work back from that and sometimes you'll find that you'll come to a completely different solution. We still spend a lot of time listening to our customers. Especially we've done a lot around COVID, and we're listening to our customers, finding out what they need from us. So perhaps it would be of value to do some roundtables with some of your customers to ask them, what do you need from us? And then start from there. And it's always interesting. You never know what's going to come out of it. It still fascinates us to this day.
Yeah, no, that's very fascinating to hear. Naomi, has that been your experience as well?
Yes, I agree totally. You need to involve the customers and find out what their needs are. And then based on the outcome of the survey or the customer focus groups, or just the feedback from customers, then you develop your NFS from there. It's not about gut feeling. It's about addressing needs of the customer.
No, thank you. I understand that we had 30 minutes. So we've got some great questions coming in, but we will get back to you, I guess, separately. But this has been a great discussion for me. I hope the audience has enjoyed this as much as I have. The key takeaway is that really tracking and measuring the impact of NFS, it's a continuous journey. It's not easy, but you have to keep at it. Partnerships are very important in all the phases of NFS. And also, we really need to be mindful that this is something, even if we're not able to measure, we'll not be able to justify resources from management. And in all our experiences, we know that NFS has been really a game changer for women SMEs to enable their business to grow and thrive. So thank you. With that, I would really like to appreciate our audience, our panelists, Yvonne and Naomi, to FMO for our collaboration on this wonderful report that's just been launched, to CCX for the excellent partnership, and to FAW for organizing such a wonderful event and the platform for us to talk about this very important topic. So with this, thank you very much again, and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Anusha. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Yvonne. That was great. And you guys can all just click home now and go back to the main screen where the summit is continuing now.